All right. Hey, what's up, guys? Oh, there's some people here already. Oh, oops. Okay, let me make sure we can check everything is good here. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, the music shouldn't be too loud. Okay, make sure everyone knows that I am live. If you guys just joined here, just wait a couple of seconds here, or maybe a minute or so that we can let people know that we are live. Oh well, YouTube will let you guys know. Especially if you guys have the notification bell on, obviously. All right, I think we're set to go. Okay, welcome everyone, welcome. So we are obviously going to be talking about two specific tickers here. I mean, it says it in the title here and the thumbnail of the stream. So we're gonna be comparing CoreWeave and Nebius, okay, or NBIS. I've heard people say NBIS and Nebius. I'm gonna choose to say Nebius. I don't think it really matters. But the ticker symbols are CRWV and NBIS. Okay, so before we begin, let me check the markets. Okay. All right. So, I want to take things in a technical direction first, mostly for this stream. I know people have been talking about these two tickers for a long time, so I want to go over it. And kind of give you guys my insight from a technical perspective, but I will go slightly into the fundamentals as well, kind of give you guys a nice little breakdown as to how they're doing and how each of them are kind of comparing with each other based on specific fundamental metrics. Okay, so first of all, let's go over CRWV, okay, CoreWeave from a technical perspective. Okay, so when we take a look at CRWV, this one has been consolidating for a lot longer here, right? It IPO back in March of 2025, had a massive run up into new all-time highs, and ever since then we've just been slowly grinding down. There's brief periods of a lot of selling. We saw it here and we saw it here as well. Okay, now after these two pretty significant areas of selling had occurred, we are now just basically moving sideways for the last 5 months here now, right? So to me, this, well, it's almost 6 months now at this point. So to me, this signifies that we're seeing some we're seeing institutions believing that, hey, CRWV is most likely set to be at a good market value or market cap around this price range, and that specific price range is from $66 to $100 per share. Right, so it's a very wide range, obviously. So it's a $34 range there, and if you guys haven't noticed, the $66 level was actually a previous IPO resistance level as well. You guys are taking a look at this on a weekly time frame, by the way, if you guys didn't know. So from that perspective, okay, CRWV obviously has made no momentum or no bullish momentum here because it's just been moving sideways, but at the same time, it has also been able to push out a lot of the sellers at the same time as well, okay? And again, we've already had two significant selling events, which eventually had the most previous one had sellers covering their positions. And so right now we're stuck in this very sideways action and movement. So from a weekly perspective, I don't really expect too much from CRWV. In fact, I actually think that we can see CRWV going up as long as the markets continue to stay up. But strictly speaking, from an individual perspective for CRWV, the weekly 50 SMA just began to form. Now, I usually don't try to trust any of my SMAs that just begin to form, that just began to form. And so on a weekly perspective though, I would say it matters a little bit more on that statement, but either way, I'll still use it here. But I like the fact that the weekly 50 SMA has started curling up higher. Hey, what's up guys? Make sure you guys hit that like button down below. Welcome guys, welcome. I see that everyone's joining in now. Awesome. Okay, so if you guys didn't know, we're just doing a quick technical comparison between CRWV and NBIS, and I will be going a little bit more into the fundamentals later on in the stream, so stick around for that. Okay, so for CRWV here, this weekly 50 SMA, I like how it's curling up higher, but then again, like I said before a couple seconds ago, that I don't like it. I don't like to use SMAs that have just begun to form, especially on this bigger time frame here. But again, very nice. Okay, so if this is going to continue to curl up higher, I would expect the price to actually move back towards this magnetic triple-digit share price number of 100. Okay, this is literally the share price that every company wants to achieve, right? They're always yearning for this triple-digit share price number, and luckily for CRWV, it had that AI data center momentum behind it, and it was able to push up higher early on in its IPO trading days. So for now, 166 are two very magnetic levels where the price will have affinity to both of these two levels and will continue to move sideways. But currently, we should be expecting CRWV to try to retest $100 once again, and most likely reject lower back down and continue to consolidate between this wide $34 range. Does that make sense, guys? Okay, now with that being said, let's take a look on the daily time frame now. Hey, what's up guys? Welcome and welcome. See a lot more people coming in now. Make sure you guys smash that like button down below, as always. And the reason why I tell you guys to do that is that, well, it really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. It helps us, well, especially as we're streaming now, it helps push my live stream to all the people who aren't subscribed to the channel as well too. So if you guys can do me a favor, hit that like button down below. Right? So okay, there's more people coming in now. Welcome. Okay, so with CRWV on a daily time frame, so this is very messy, right? Obviously from a weekly time frame, everything looked a lot cleaner due to the fact that each candlestick consists of about 5 trading days, right, excluding all the days where the market isn't open. But on the daily time frame, obviously very, very wicky during this entire sideways consolidation so far. Very, very wicky. There's a lot of gap ups and gap downs, even during where there has been no catalysts announced in this company. But so far, this is basically tamer action coming from a very high beta name. So for CRWV, I think as long as it's able to stay around, well, I would say bottom line, right, on a daily time frame, the line in the sand level for CRWV will be at $80. Okay, this is the bottom line, the line in the sand level that buyers have to hold. And thankfully, this week so far, we had this nice bullish crossover of the daily time frame over the daily 21 SMA, and that is a very nice short-term bullish crossover right here, okay, of my SMAs. So as long as it continues to ride over the daily 10, this red line, and then the daily 21, which is this declining daily 21 SMA, we should be seeing a very nice run up higher and eventually break over this daily 50 SMA, which has been a pretty crucial and critical area of resistance, where sellers have been continuously smacking the price back down. So what I want to see on the daily time frame for my SMAs is basically this. Okay, so this is my 10 SMA there. Let's change that color, and then back to light blue. Okay, I think there it is. All right. Okay, so since we just got this bullish crossover of the daily 10 and the daily 21 SMA, with the daily 10 crossing over and over the top of the daily 21, I'm going to be expecting, as long as the price continues to stay over the daily 10 SMA, to start curling like this, and eventually bottoming out and then curling up higher and catching up with the daily 10 SMA, as long as, again, it continues to ride over the daily 10 SMA. Does that make sense? Okay, this is very simple textbook SMA action based on how price action could be going in the future. And again, I'm going to be assuming that this is a bullish manner in a bullish perspective because of what I saw on the weekly time frame and on the daily time frame here, right? And again, it's ranging, right? So the price will be constantly oscillating between $66 and $100. A very, very wide range, but a lot of opportunities if you decide to get in at a very critical area, just like at this daily 50 SMA. Again, if it breaks over that, then sellers get pushed out, and we'll be seeing a very nice, quick, dramatic, and volatile push back up higher over the 90s, and eventually, hopefully, have this magnetic retest at $100, where again, sellers will be waiting for the buyers to smack them right back down, and yet again, we'll be seeing more oscillation between this wide range. Okay, so all that being said, let's take a look at NBIS now. Okay, so if you take a look at NBIS, okay, from a technical perspective. Now again, I'm just going to be doing the technical analysis very quick for each of these names, and then we'll be going over the comparison between these two. Okay, so NBIS, obviously, right off the bat, looks a lot more bullish, right, than CRWV on the daily time frame and on the weekly time frame. However, let me actually. And yes, we were looking at NBIS over $44, right? However, NBIS has had a lot longer period, well, not period, a lot longer history in the public stock market, right? So this one has been basing for years and years and years. And eventually, when 2022 came around, it had this very nice big re-rate, right? The valuation of this company completely dropped down, and eventually the company began to change, right? The management began to do different things, and NBIS slowly began to emerge as a potential winner and a leader in the AI space, the burgeoning AI industry. And around 2023, we start to see that change coming in, especially when the overall hype with ChatGPT, right, OpenAI started to make waves. That's when people began to realize that NBIS may become a pretty critical player. And so far, that realization has been, well, realized in the price. Okay, and so from a technical perspective, NBIS looks very, very good, and it seems like it has been the major winner compared to CRWV. Okay, now it's pretty interesting to see where NBIS has, well, how far in NBIS has become, but I'll give you a reason why NBIS can also be a pretty risky name to consider. Well, obviously the entire AI industry has been a very risky endeavor for any people that have been willingly putting a lot of their money and allocating their money towards AI investments. But when we go over the fundamentals, you might have a little shift in your perspective, especially when you're trying to rule out the technicals first of all and just only focus on the fundamentals. So we'll go over that. But again, technically, I would agree with you guys. This one has obviously had a long history though, but for now, it seems like it has made a lot more of a it has given obviously a better performance from a share price point wise, and this is already at a triple-digit share price, and it continues to stick to a triple-digit share price. And just like what we saw with NBIS, this one has been consolidating for about 5 months now, around the same period as CRWV. However, just about 2 weeks ago, we saw a nice big break out of that sideways action, and so this one has been able to benefit a lot earlier from its sideways consolidation and oscillation for about 5 months, a lot earlier than CRWV. And so thankfully though, NBIS didn't just gap up and make these large weekly candlesticks that we just saw in the weekly time frame from nothing, right? It had a major news, I think, from Meta, right? I think it was news with Meta platforms, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so they had this new big deal, billions of dollars worth of a deal with Meta, and so that's what caused this big jump on March 11th. And from this point onward, we saw a nice inside day candlestick, and eventually this inside day candlestick was just a very good retest of this 107.50 to 108 very tight supply area, which was again a very critical resistance level that the price was respecting the entire time that it was moving sideways and oscillating between around, let's say around like 78, yeah, 78 to around 108 if you want to just round up, right? So 78 to 108. So you know, it's a pretty wide range as well. Obviously it's a $30 range for 78 to 108. But again, very nice breakout, and even now it's making a very nice consolidation pattern here, right? We have a nice bull pennant forming. So hey, this might even just be a nice idea into the end of the week, who knows? So if you guys didn't know what you guys wanted to trade or look at the very least, this might just be a ticker that you might want to be looking at into the end of the week. Okay, so again, NBIS from a stock price performance, I would say just strictly on the price alone, NBIS looks a lot better, right? But yeah, so from a technical perspective, this is my overlook on NBIS and CRWV. Okay, now we're gonna further delve into a little bit more of the details on the technicals here. So first of all, the market cap based on the share price right now is, let's see, I had this in my head, but let me make sure. Oh, I don't want to read it. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so the market cap is nearly 29 billion for NBIS. Okay, and then for CRWV, okay, based on today's closing price, okay, that's gonna, okay, there it is. Okay, and market cap for CRWV is 46 billion, so almost double, right? Almost double than NBIS. Okay, now let me talk about the revenue between these two companies. All right, because I think the revenue is pretty important for data center companies, because they need, again, the most important thing about the data companies so far on kind of the surface level metrics that people look at for growth has been the backlog of orders, right? The amount of backlog of orders, the volume of orders, right? And also the revenue, right? The current revenue, how much they're actually churning when you're concerning data centers, right? So here is the current revenue. I think this is the 2025, the most recent. Yeah, 2025 revenue. Okay, so NBIS. Oh, let me start with CR. Well, yeah, let's do NBIS. So NBIS, right, or Nebius, or Nebius. I don't know how people say it. I say Nebius. It's 530 million, and that's for 2025. And for CRWV, does anyone want to guess? Okay. Well, if you guys didn't know, it's $5 billion. So again, let me repeat that. So NBIS is at 530 million and CRWV is at $5 billion. Okay, so that's pretty good, right? That's pretty good for CRWV, right? But when you take a look at the percentage growth of that revenue from 2025, all right, the year-over-year growth, okay, here is where things get a little bit interesting, right? So it seems like CRWV has already established itself as a pretty solid leader when it comes to revenue growth. But when you take a look at the actual change in growth, the year-over-year growth, NBIS had a huge percentage growth, year-over-year growth in revenue, and it was over 300% compared to CRWV's 168%. Okay, so when you're considering the growth metrics, that's a pretty solid growth, right? And I would say that's pretty much reflected as to the reason why NBIS also, from a technical perspective, looks great, right? And to me, this is a pretty solid growth based on the fact that the company has been struggling for the past decade, right? Eventually, something turned around, which is again the AI revolution came about, right? And you know, it seems like to me that NBIS has a nice hold as to what they're doing as a company when it's entrenching themselves into this very risky AI industry that is now nearly turning into a bubble now. I would say we're at near the peak. Okay, that's my opinion. But yeah, so NBIS has really just created a nice foundation for itself based on this this year-over-year growth percentage alone, right? So 300%, over 300% last year, compared to CRWV's around 165-ish% in year-over-year growth. Okay, and I believe in their most recent guidance of revenue, I think for NBIS here, it was, I think for NBIS, they had like this, they had a guidance of, I think it was like 9 billion. I think that's what I remember when I was looking at NBIS stats for the fundamental metrics, and I saw the guidance as well from the earnings report. Yeah. It was okay. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was 9 billion. I think it was like 8 to 9 billion. That was their revenue guidance for the fiscal year 2026. So right now, right? And then CRWV, obviously they have a bigger revenue number that they had for 2025, so they guided a lot bigger compared to NBIS, obviously. So I think it was around like 12 billion, right? 11 to 12 billion. Okay, so let's hope they all reach their targets, obviously, by the end of this year. But now let's specifically talk about the backlog of orders. All right, so when you take a look at the revenue backlog for NBIS and CRWV, there's a clear difference, right? So right now, NBIS, that meta deal that I was talking about, that revenue backlog that they have is 27 billion. But if you take a look at CRWV, okay, their revenue backlog is 66.8 billion. All right, that's a pretty clear difference. All right, so again, let me give you guys again the revenue backlog just from the meta deal for NBIS is 27 billion, around there. And then the revenue backlog for CRWV is 66 billion. All right, so there's a lot of this back and forth online where people are arguing which company is better, CRWV or NBIS. Now, personally for me, when I just take a look at the revenue metrics and the growth and the backlog, right, I would say they're both doing pretty great. And the nuance comes down to the actual technology that they're using, that each of the companies are using. And I'm not well versed enough to know exactly what each company is doing, and involving data centers and the overall AI industry, and how they're entrenching themselves in, and how they're growing their value in the AI industry, right? The company's value. So that's for all the techies out there. But just from the fundamental metrics alone, CRWV to me clearly stands out as a major leader, right? And it has potential to become a very valuable company as it continues to expand its moat in the AI industry alone. Maybe they can continue to spread into, maybe in the future when we are looking into more the quantum computing stuff, right? Maybe CRWV can also be involved with that as well, right? However, I would say NBIS has had a very nice and quick turnaround the past 3 to 5 years. All right, I'm not denying that. All right, I'm not saying NBIS is still lesser of the two. NBIS has had a very solid growth just from the revenue metrics alone. So again, just as a reminder, right? Last year, I think the quarter 4 revenue here was for NBIS. Yeah, so they missed on the estimate, but it was 227 million, right? And then for CRWV though, okay, they're still leading in the amount of revenue that they're doing, right? So it's 1.57 billion. Okay, and they also beat revenue in their most recent quarter. Okay, or quarterly reports, right, for quarter 4 of last year. And so again, the overall revenue guidance for this year for CRWV will obviously be a lot bigger compared to NBIS. So that's not really a useful metric there. But when you just take a look at the actual revenue backlog based on the orders that they have, the backlog of orders that they have, I would say CRWV is definitely a company that a lot of other companies that they need. They need CRWV services. They're definitely trusting CoreWeave a lot more. Okay, and again, I'm not gonna go into all the tech stuff or whatever that they're doing. I'm not well versed in that, so that's interesting. Okay, now when you take a look just at the my next favorite margins for my next favorite metric, which is going to be margins, specifically gross margins and profit margins overall, both of the companies aren't good. Okay, but one positive is their EBITDA margin for CRWV, I believe. Yeah, CRWV. Okay, has been positive for their most recent quarterly earnings report. So that's a nice shift for CRWV. All right, I think it was like over 50% for their EBITDA margin. But overall, for example, like the operating margins, they're both negative. Okay, but thanks to CRWV's much bigger revenue numbers, and even just on their guidance too, but just their revenue numbers, they're still slightly doing better on margin wise. Okay. Now, when it comes to debt to equity ratio, or just the amount of cash that they have, let's just talk about their cash, right? The liquidity. Okay. Surprisingly, CRWV has been actually doing a little bit worse compared to NBIS. And that leads me to believe that from a financial perspective, the company itself isn't managing their money quite well, even though they've had such stellar revenue growth and revenue guidance as well, their projections. It's very nice and bullish, obviously. But when you compare the debt, right, let's talk about the total debt as well, right, compared to the cash. So for CRWV, they have about 3 billion in cash liquidity, obviously, for the company, and the total debt is almost 30 billion. So that's not a good ratio there, obviously. Okay, but for NBIS, right, they only have 4 billion in total debt, and I believe those are convertible notes as well, right? So when you're just comparing the debt to equity ratio, I would say NBIS has a stronger fundamental perspective. When you're just focusing on the liquidity of the company and the total amount of debt that they have and the future amount of debt payments that they have to do, including, right, the actual interest payments that they have to do on that debt, right? So, it's pretty interesting to see where they will go with that, with the debt, because again, every good company, as they start to mature, they will have to slowly pay down their debt, the principal amount, and the interest rates as well, right? And obviously, CRWV has a lot of money, but they're not keeping a lot of that revenue. Plus, they have a larger amount of debt, and they're also leveraging that debt to grow too. So at some point, CRWV, once it begins to quote-unquote mature as a company, once they deem that they have enough cash, they have enough cash and they're generating enough of revenue, total revenue, they might want to start paying down their debt, and on top of that, their interests, right? Not interest rate. Okay, so interest rates is caught my tongue here because I've been talking about interest rates a lot lately. Okay, so that is very interesting to see. All right, so for me, okay, I think CRWV still, again, is the clear leader here. I wouldn't say winner just yet. I would want to see CRWV obviously paying down their debts, and getting a bit more customers, I would say, because I believe CoreWeave, CRWV, I think most of the backlog is from OpenAI. I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Let me actually look this one up. Oh yeah, that's right. It was Microsoft. So Microsoft and OpenAI has been two major customers, and I think. Oh yeah, so CRWV has been working with a lot more companies compared to NBIS. That's what I was trying to remember. So CRWV has a bunch more customers, which explains their way bigger amount in volume of backlogs, the backlog volumes, and the amount of money of backlogs, right? So let me see here. Yeah, so they have customers like NVIDIA, Meta, IBM. All right, sorry, IBM was one, and I think Coherent as well, and a bunch of other AI startups as well too. So, it's pretty interesting to see where. Oh, let me make sure I'm not playing that. We get copyrighted there. Let's see. Let's go back to this. Okay, so this is, to me, when you're considering CRWV, right? I would say, you know what? Here, let me actually give it to you guys straight. Okay, so if you are kind of confused as to where to allocate your money compared to these two, obviously they're going to be leaders. That's a fact. CRWV and NBIS. I would say keep a larger position on CRWV, but also keep a little smaller than CRWV, but a solid core position in NBIS as well. Okay, because NBIS growth has been astonishing, right? They've been doing pretty well. Okay, now for CRWV again, they have a larger range of customers, and then while I think NBIS has less, yeah, they do have less customers compared to CRWV, if I remember. I saw this in the Bloomberg terminal. I don't really remember. But so either way, I would say keep, obviously, even just from a from a share price perspective, right? CRWV is a lot cheaper. So CRWV should have a little bit of a bigger position, even just based on the fundamentals that I've just shown you guys, even just solely based on the revenue growth and the revenue guidance as well. And but NBIS has been a solid player here in the AI industry and the data center growth. So I think having both positions isn't a bad idea, even though I've seen plenty of arguments online on Twitter, on stock tweets as well. I don't think there's no point in arguing because these two companies are obviously battling out, right? They're fighting for the moat here in the AI industry and data centers, and one company is definitely going to have a lot more market share compared to the other, right? Obviously, again, let me remind you guys, the market cap for CRWV is nearly double NBIS, okay? But again, it's not all about market cap, right? Obviously, we took a look at their overall cash, their debt, their margins, right? Obviously, the margins for both companies aren't good either way. But I think having just a solid core position that is slightly larger than NBIS on CRWV isn't a bad idea, right? And also having NBIS, again, as another company to have as a core position wouldn't be a bad idea at all. So if you guys are, the tech nerds out there, if you guys know what they're doing, what each company is doing, and which tech is better, great. All right, that's awesome. I don't know any of that stuff, but just from the fundamental metrics alone and from a technical aspect, obviously NBIS has been leading, but CRWV has been severely lagging so far compared to its peer NBIS. So I think CRWV has a better chance from a risk to reward ratio here, that it has a better chance of running up higher compared to NBIS, which has ran up a lot more. If you just choose, even just a couple months ago, you can clearly see that NBIS has been winning, quote unquote winning, based on its current stock performance. Doesn't make sense, guys? Hopefully I'm not boring you guys here. Okay, so I'm giving just my simple thoughts here of what I've been thinking about between these two companies, and just trying to make sure I don't overcomplicate things, because once you start overanalyzing, overcomplicating things from a technical and that fundamental metrics that I've just shown you guys and gone over, it's gonna get too confusing, right? So if any of you guys are tech nerds, and if you guys are really interested, if you guys have been going into the technical side of things with each company, that's great, and maybe you guys know more about the company because of that. And maybe you might be thinking that CRWV is better because of that, or maybe NBIS is better because of that. Currently for me, what I've read so far, NBIS has been a lot better of a company from a technology perspective. I don't know why. I don't really know the details of that. I don't really care to go deeply into the details, but I think both companies are staging its early phases of growth in the AI industry, which is here to stay, obviously. But CRWV, I would say, as a final conclusive statement here, should be a core position that is slightly larger than NBIS as a core position. Does that make sense, guys? Hopefully it does. Okay, I think I saw you guys' reactions there. Does anyone have any questions right now? Okay, because once I, before I leave the fundamental stuff, I'm gonna go right back into the technical stuff here as well. Are we good, guys? Awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, make sure you guys hit that like button down below too. Don't forget that. Okay, so now for CRWV, this one has a pretty high call skew. Well, both do actually, and IVs for the option contracts are absolutely skyrocketing. Well, they have been skyrocketing actually, ever since both of them have been oscillating. But I think NBIS has settled down a little bit more since that already has broken out, thanks to the meta deal that it recently got. So I think overall, CoreWeave obviously has that better risk to reward ratio here, based on how it's been oscillating still. The price hasn't gotten anywhere since November. Okay, so CRWV pretty much has a lot more room than NBIS to move higher. But let me remind you, from a technical perspective, NBIS still looks a lot stronger because, well, it has already broken out of its nearly 5-month consolidation range. Does that make sense? Right? So from a technical perspective, you guys want to have quick swings. I would say NBIS currently has a better reason, right, to be long, because again, it's already in a nice uptrend. On the other hand, right, CRWV, it has been moving sideways, right? There is no set uptrend just yet, right? The price hasn't moved since November of last year. But when you want to take a look at it from a risk to reward perspective, the risks may actually be well, if you take the risk on CRWV, it might actually be a bit more rewarding because, again, it has been a laggard and it will try to eventually catch up to its peer NBIS. Does that make sense? Right? Okay. I know some people might say that doesn't make sense because you guys are looking at it from the macro perspective or even just the fundamental perspective, but if you just take a look at it from strictly at a technical aspect, you guys will understand what I'm saying, right? Because, again, NBIS has already broken out, right? Maybe the opportunity to go long has already been passed. Maybe we just break down here and negate this bull pennant flag, who knows, right? But the opportunity is there for both tickers depending on your time horizon, right? Maybe you have a longer time frame for your position, on your long position for CRWV, and you might want to grab shares now, right, as it's moving sideways, and it has been moving sideways for the last 5 months. Nearly 6 months now, especially if it doesn't decide to break out from that wide consolidation range. But again, all comes down to your own subjective time horizon, depending on if you want to choose NBIS or CRWV. But again, from my own conclusive statement here, right, I think having money allocated for both of these companies is not a bad idea. And even from just a fundamental lesson of investing, right? If you guys have a long-term horizon for both of these companies, you shouldn't be allocating your entire money on one single company anyways, right? So you want to kind of spread that out. Yes, NBIS and CRWV are involved in the same industry, but they're obviously doing very different things. Since CRWV, first of all, a larger amount of volume in backlogs, right? And it has a larger amount of revenue. Okay, so there's that, right? So again, I'm not trying to argue which one's better, because again, I don't really know the technical stuff there, what the companies are doing. I'm just strictly looking at it from a technical and a fundamental perspective, on a superficial perspective. Okay, I haven't really gone too deeply into the fundamentals, because again, I just want to look at the technicals first here. Okay, so NBIS, again, if you want to just trade this short term, even tomorrow, right, you might want to have some alerts here, because if it's able to break out, so we're going to now have a nice little deeper dive onto the technicals here. So on the 4-hour time frame for NBIS, we have a very nice bull pennant here, and if we're able to, well, I would say have an alert at 117.50, right? Around 117.55, it has to break over that 0.50 whole number level. Have an alert there, and once that alert goes off, start looking at this, right? Start hawking this name, because once it's able to break over 120, that's when things will become a lot more smoother for any of the buyers who are starting to pile into this name as it begins a potential second leg up higher. And again, where was the first leg? Well, it was here, right? Where the price reacted very heavily to that Meta deal, okay, which is now currently added into, the entire Meta deal is now added into their current backlog of orders, okay? So NBIS, keep your alerts there at 117.55, and eventually once it has your attention, look out for that 120 level. That should bring a nice quick change and shift in volume and momentum as buyers start to pile in over this 120 whole number level. Does that make sense? Okay, I see you guys' reactions there. Perfect. Okay, so if you go down now to CRWV, okay, I would say just keep your eyes out for this $80 level on the 4-hour time frame. All right, this will be again, like I said earlier, a line in the sand level, or else if you break this, we're going right back down and hitting this massive support level at $66. Okay, but as long as it's able to continue to break over, I would say 88 on this intraday level. Let me see here. Yeah, so $88, that'll be, yeah, $88 here, or even 88.50, guys. As long as it's able to break over this declining, and again, both the 4-hour 50 and 200 SMAs have been declining here so far, and they have proven themselves to be very large areas of intraday SMA resistance. So the fact that it's closed over the 4-hour 50 SMA and now closed over the 200 SMA on the 4-hour time frame here, as long as we're able to stay over this tomorrow and into the end of this week, I think there's a good chance for this to break over 88. So make sure you guys have that alert at 88 or 88.50 if you guys want extra confirmation for that breakout. But either way, if you're able to stay over both of these two SMAs in the 4-hour time frame, I think we're set to go towards the 90s, eventually break over $90 here, and eventually head back to this very strong level, a magnetic level of 100. Does that make sense? Wow, we have a lot of people in here. We had 24 people in here tonight. Does that make sense, guys? All right, so I'm giving you guys really just active trade ideas that you guys can take tomorrow or into the rest of the week, right? If it works out. Okay, so let me know if you guys are understanding everything so far. Reactions or, you know, anything in the chat. I see a lot of people here, but the chat is lonely. The live chat. Okay, I see you guys' reactions there. Okay, I think it's a little bit late. There's a little time difference there. Okay, so yeah, with that being said, I think that's pretty much it. You know, I just wanted to go over kind of my takes on CRWV and NBIS. There's a heated debate always going on with these two companies online, and to be honest, I don't really want to read the technical stuff regarding the technology between those two. I always see arguments for NBIS because maybe NBIS has just made such a great turnaround effort that their technology is better, but also I see that CRWV has really solidified as a leading data center name, or kind of the overall leader in the AI industry. So, you know, it's interesting, right? It's very interesting. I mean, even just again, like I said earlier, when you just take a look at the change in revenue growth, right? The percentage in revenue growth, NBIS has had a phenomenal growth rate in revenue, right? Just the revenue numbers. That was what is it? 300%? Yeah, it was 300%, right? Year over year from last year, from 2024 to 2025, or 2025. Sorry. So, you know, I think NBIS was also recognized as one of the fastest companies. It was the fastest cloud company. Yeah, that's right. Fastest cloud company to to reach 5 billion in history. Okay, so yeah, so I think both companies are eventually going to be leading towards profitability. Obviously they're not, right? So as long as they continue on their way towards better financial situations for both companies, I think it's going to be a pretty good idea to again have two core positions on both of the two companies. It's obviously a slightly larger one, CRWV, but subjectively, depending on your own time horizon and time horizons for these two companies, you might want to be allocating a bit more money into NBIS compared to CRWV. Who knows, right? I don't know your subjective time horizon for these two companies. Does that make sense? Okay, they both have big risks, obviously. I mean, I've shown you guys their overall debt is pretty large and their cash too. So yeah, I mean, overall, I think fundamentally, guys, it's not worth trying to argue between those two just from a fundamental perspective, because each of them have their own fundamental qualities. Again, for NBIS, it was the large growth, year-over growth in revenue. That percentage of 300%, absolutely phenomenal. But then, if you just take a look at the actual money amount of the backlog, right, or of orders, CRWV has definitely a more solid backlog of orders that will continuously give them revenue, right? The revenue will continue to be churned in the company, and they will continue to have potentially higher runaway cash as well. Okay, so I think as long as both companies continue though to succeed in the orders that they've received from overall deals that they made with the big companies like OpenAI and Meta Platforms, NVIDIA, IBM. I think it's pretty solid to have two core positions on both of these two companies. Okay. I know some of you guys may have dropped into the stream thinking that I'm going to choose one, but to be honest, just from a fundamental analysis, it's hard to do that. It really is hard to do that. So they just have pretty good attractive qualities on separate metrics, on different metrics, right? So again, my main theme here is that, my main analysis here is that NBIS, extremely great revenue growth, nice turnaround, okay? But for CRWV, right, they already have a larger amount of revenue so far that they posted in their most quarterly earnings report, and also even if they didn't have that stellar revenue growth year over year, I think again it was like 165%. Yeah, 165%. I think that was the number that I said earlier. Even though it's not as impressive as 300%, that's still impressive, right? But I can just take a look at the backlog of orders, right? The volume of the backlog of orders. Excuse me. CoreWeave definitely is definitely the leader there, right? It seems like companies are willing to do more business and deals with this company, and that's kind of my main reason why I am concluding my analysis here by saying that I think CRWV deserves more of your cash allocation for a long-term position. Okay, I'm saying this very carefully so that I don't really anger anyone, because I know the debate is very heavy between these two companies. So I think, again, just from the backlog in CRWV, I think it's going to be great as long as they continue to meet those demands and those backlog of orders in a timely fashion. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. I think, again, CRWV and NBIS, they also have kind of a crossover in the customers that they serve. I know NBIS kind of became notorious and it was able to see a big jump in volume in the last 2 years, I think 2-3 years, because of NVIDIA. I think NVIDIA really brought NBIS forward. That's just the name itself. So but again, they both, NVIDIA has blessed both companies here. So yeah. All right, well, that's it for tonight, guys. Thank you guys so much for joining in. Again, hopefully I haven't angered you guys for not giving you guys a clear, well, I did give you guys a clear answer, right? So again, they both have nice qualities from a fundamental perspective, right? And depending on your own time horizon, from a technical perspective, you guys can have differing opinions, obviously, right? If you guys are choosing to allocate your money onto both companies, it would depend strictly on your time horizons, your subjective time horizons, right? But I'm sticking with having a bigger core position in CRWV compared to NBIS core position. Okay? All right, well, that is it for tonight, guys. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed the stream here, and hopefully this can be a stream that you guys can come back to and revisit in the near-term future, maybe in the next 2 to 3 years, and we can see how these two companies have worked out in the next 2 to 3 years, or maybe even just into the end of the decade. All right, thank you, Timothy. Okay, so you're welcome there. So, you know, I think it's pretty interesting that we're going to be seeing a lot more of the smaller data center companies also starting to grow. But I also know that there's always been chatter of M&A just within the AI names as well, that possibly NBIS and CRWV will be looking to acquire those smaller companies. But make sure you guys understand this, okay? These two companies are not ready for any acquisitions just yet, even though they might do that to just leverage their growth, right? But you guys have to remember, M&As just don't mean that they're getting that smaller company's business. They're also going to be taking on, presumably, a large amount of debt, okay? And again, these two companies already have a pretty big amount of debt, and even just their debt to cash ratio is pretty much, I won't miss my words, it's horrible. It's horrible, okay? They are horrible. So it's going to be, I think, a pretty long time before they decide to start acquiring companies to leverage growth, right? And to continue to grow. So I wouldn't say that they're not at any point right now, from a fundamental perspective and a financial perspective, that they would be trying to acquire smaller data center companies, okay? So I don't think we have to worry about that just yet. But if they do, I mean, good for them, I guess, right? I know they're going to be adding on more debt, right, to the total amount of debt that they currently have. And both, again, have a pretty high risk when you're taking a look at their debt alone compared to their cash or their overall liquidity as a company. Okay? So again, I just wanted to provide the stream to give you guys kind of this food for thought for your future investment thesis for both companies, since again the debate between these two companies are very heated. So alright, well, that is it for tonight, guys. I did a stream, well, since Monday. I've been doing streams from Monday to Wednesday so far. I did a stream yesterday too, so maybe just for this week alone, maybe I'll do streams every single night. Kind of make sure that people know that I am here, right? So if you guys really enjoy my nightly streams, make sure you guys hit that like button down below. Again, it really helps out with the YouTube algorithm. But most importantly, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button if this information was very informative, but most importantly, very, very applicable, in the sense that, well, I just gave you guys potential trade ideas here, short-term and long-term wise, right, for both NBIS and CRWV. And that concludes my stream, guys. All right, have a great rest of your night. Hopefully I might do a stream tomorrow, but if not, I'll see you guys on Monday at the same time at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time or 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All right, thank you guys so much for watching and clicking that like button down below. All right. Oh, and one last thing, guys, before I leave here, before I leave the almost 30 people here. Yeah, 30 people. Okay, make sure you guys check that description box down below. All right, I have very interesting links there that you guys might want to look at, especially that CFO Stream Watch Report link. Okay, so if you guys want to join, make sure you guys hit that link down below in the description box. Okay, it's the second link. It's very hard to miss. All right, have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much for joining.